All right. Thank you. Hear me better this time? Yes. Hold it close, everyone. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tubi. So intros were just given. I'd like each of you to give a little bit of background on your role in the department that you lead and work in. We'll start, Colleen.
All right.
With you.
Hey, everyone. Excited to be here today. Colleen Nuffer. I lead our integrated planning team at Electronic Arts. It's a newly formed team that brought together what was 3 separate teams. So previously we had separate teams for global paid media, regional paid media, and lifecycle, or our CRM efforts. And we brought all of that into one central planning team, really with the goal of removing channel bias to build the most efficient and effective plan and drive more audience-first planning. So my days vary from supporting our global media agency to helping my team craft strategies across EA's full portfolio. So franchises like FC, The Sims, Madden, Apex, and so many more as EA has grown over the years. Prior to EA, I was working primarily on the agency side, having most recently worked on Disney Destinations at our Cara SF office. That is no longer, but excited to be here today. This is a topic near and dear to my heart.
Narasu.
Hi, everyone. I'm Narasu Rebbapragada. I work at the Clorox company, and I work in the cleaning division, also on the Clorox brand. I right now work with a cross-functional team called internally Test, Learn, Scale, and it is a team dedicated to doing a lot of experimentation and testing around brand engagement and retailer marketing. I've been at Clorox for a while. Prior to that, I was in content marketing, working on brands like Brita and Hidden Valley, and prior to that, I was a tech journalist.
Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. Chelsea Winthrow here. At Logitech, I lead our paid media, digital, and insight teams. Previously, we had those teams spread out across all of our regions, country by country, and over the last couple years, we've worked to bring them all together and centralize under one organization. So that has been a pretty big shift for us over the last couple years. I've been at Logitech for about 8 years now, and prior to that, I had worked in the retail and entertainment industries.
Awesome.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So great backgrounds, all 3 different companies. One thing that really drew me to this panel, and thanks for Brand Innovators for setting this up, is the metamorphosis of it, and the metamorphosis meaning of change and becoming something new and growing, and it could be evolving or could just be change in general. All 3 of these brands have played a role in my life, from the beginning of my PC days to having my own place and learning how to clean on my own, to video games that I still play today, although I need to upgrade. So I'd love for each of you to give us a little bit of an example of metamorphosis as it relates to your role and something recent. I mean, we don't have to go back to 1910s for Clorox, but something recent. Let's start with you, Chelsea. Give us a little bit of insight of some metamorphosis in your role and what you deal with.
Yeah, I think something that's been kind of a pivotal shift since the time that I've been at Logitech is we've really grown our B2B side of the business. Historically, Logitech has been notoriously more consumer-oriented, and we did see that need. We saw a lot of crossover in the products that we provided and the opportunity to offer that to B2B clients and businesses. And we really worked to grow that business over the last 8 years since I've been there. So just seeing that metamorphosis and that growth has been really exciting, especially in the last couple of years as the pandemic hit and the need for more video conferencing tools really took over. So that's kind of been an exciting shift and change for the company. And then also kind of thinking and challenging the way that we think about B2B brands and how we show up versus consumer brands. Consumer brands get to be fun and playful and have really cool products, and we're like, well, we have really cool products over here on the B2B side too. So leveraging some of the really cool, unique brand creative and bringing that over to the B2B side has been something that we've been testing across our different audiences and finding some strong traction with, because let's face it, we're we're buying for businesses maybe over on the B2B side, but we're all humans. So,
I love that. Yes, B2B can be fun. Keep it human. No AI squirrels. Logitech, EA, and Clorox. Narasu, what about you? What are some of the metamorphosis and change that you've seen in your time and recently, obviously with pandemic and some of the partnerships that the cleaning division has started to work with, and kind of opening new channels for you, and especially with your role in testing and learning, we'd love to hear a little bit about some of the things that you see.
First, I just want to say that I think Logitech is a really fun brand. My favorite mouse is Logitech, and it is an owl. I bring it with me everywhere. But to answer your question, the pandemic is the obvious moment of change where Clorox became super relevant. You know, if Chromeo has a song about your brand, that's pretty unusual, particularly if you're a cleaning brand. But to me, Metamorphosis is more of like a evolution, positive, beautiful change, which is not how I would describe the pandemic. So I would like to talk about a sub-brand that we have called Scentiva. So if you think about Clorox, you think about disinfecting, think about the long history of scouring and getting things white and white sheets in the wind. And then the reality is when we looked at our consumer, that is not what they were interested in only. And as times went on and Gen X became millennials, becoming Gen Z, they have lots of different cleaning interests and what they want to get out of it. And so one thing that really came to mind is like a cultural trend is scent. So we launched a sub-brand in 2017. I think it's like a sleeper brand in that it's been around for a while, but with all the focus on disinfection, it doesn't get a lot of love. So if you see it, check it out. But we really leaned into modern scent and modern experience with cleaning while keeping it disinfecting. So I think for us, that is the moment of metamorphosis that I lived through, where Clorox is really trying hard and succeeding at being relevant beyond the traditional cleaning and disinfecting.
Great. We'll have to check that out. Colleen, launch strategies, free to play, any of those kind of metamorphosis. Walk us through some things that EA is going through.
Yeah. EA's gone through quite a bit of change since our inception in 1982 when we started with arcade machines and local restaurants. Our mission has always remained the same, and that's to inspire the world to play. The recent projections have the global gaming audience going from 3 billion to 4 billion by 2030. So massive audience that's pretty ubiquitous with the general demographic of the world. And I think a lot of that growth came from change as a result of the pandemic and people spending more time than ever at home and being able to be introduced to this new form, not necessarily new form of entertainment, but a different form of entertainment. And that started to cut more and more into people of how they chose to spend their time. We also have made a purposeful effort to make our games more accessible. So a big legacy brand like The Sims 4 has recently gone free to play, which follows other models that we have for popular games like Apex Legends. There's also a huge rise in casual gaming. So if you think about the rise of mobile and everyone and their mom playing different mobile games, at EA, we launched a game 2 years ago called It Takes Two that took home Game of the Year that year. And it was wildly popular among young families and young couples and really introduced this new way of playing and this new form of entertainment to a new demographic. So we've seen this meteoric rise through gaming, and that's been a big part of the change that we've seen as a brand. But I would be remiss not to mention that we've also gone through a massive rebrand recently. If you're not familiar, we just changed our 30-year legacy deal with FIFA, where we were licensing a soccer or football game, depending on where you are in the world, and have rebranded it as FC, EA Sports Football Club. And that was a big bet that we took, but it gave us more creative freedom to really own that platform and relabel it as a way for fans of football and soccer to connect around the world. So it's been exciting to see that happen and the marketing behind it actually working. So
Love that. Love to hear the marketing working. And that's sort of brings us to the next thing, which is like change can happen in many forms. And as a brand marketer, the challenges that you face. You talk about changes in audiences, in product offerings and needs, targeting and data usage, privacy, branding or rebranding, as you mentioned, and just consumer habits in general. I mean, these are all things that you have to face and then adapt for and lead change with. Chelsea, as a B2B marketer, you mentioned B2B marketing is thought of being boring. What are some of the ways that you're staying ahead of that, or some of the things the changes that you're seeing in that space that you think other B2B marketers could use and learn from?
Yeah, I think definitely over the past couple years, about past 5 years, definitely seen a shift in, I think, mindset with B2B brands where, traditionally it might have been a little bit more conservative, a little bit more direct. You're definitely appealing to more of the rational buy versus something that's more emotional. And as I mentioned before, the idea that we're tapping into individuals and we're humans and we like fun things and we want to be drawn to things that inspire us or something fun and kitschy, an ad that or a headline that you say, hey, that's really fun. I think that's something across the industry that we've seen, especially in the video conferencing world. I just think, our pals over at Zoom have gotten pretty creative. Historically, Blue Jeans, I think they came out with a really great headlines that just said, video conferencing that doesn't suck. So, just being really fun and playful has been a pretty big shift in the B2B world, I believe.
Great. Colleen, Narasu, let's go to you next. How is Clorox embracing change, and from your lens specifically, you mentioned the one brand that you gave an example of, but what else within the Clorox family embrace change? Talk about sustainability. You've heard a lot about authenticity today. I know it may not necessarily relate to your specific division, but I mean, Clorox is a huge family of brands, and just in the cleaning division is a huge family of brands. So from your lens, what are some of the ways that you're embracing change and kind of looking ahead?
As part of its enterprise strategy, Clorox had made some big bets and big priorities around data and personalization. And this is pre-pandemic. Our leaders stated that we would have 50 to 75% of our media personalized, as well as get to know 100 million known consumers in support of that personalization goal. So that created quite a bit of change, and I worked in some roles where we had to very quickly figure out how to meet annual goals in support of this corporate strategy. So that was a moment of great change for me personally within the cleaning division, as well as people in my role within the other brands. And thank goodness we started this journey before the pandemic, because we knew how to acquire data, we knew how to work with data, we started to know where personalization was working for us and where it wasn't. And I think the thing that was really important is just staying the course. There was so much market fluctuation at the time, and still, with the economy, with geopolitical events, with the law, you're doing this great data job, and all of a sudden you hear about states all of a sudden having all these privacy laws, and that impacts you. So just like staying the course, things coming at you, staying the course. So in some ways, my journey with change is about staying constant while change happens to you.
Yeah, I think there is something to said. We heard about that earlier in the panel that I was on. It's just, when you're level setting from a brand, knowing who you are and sticking to that. I think that's very important. Colleen, anything further to share on embracing change? And I know you kind of leaned in a little bit on the FC thing. Is there any more you can share with us with that launch? I mean, that's a global launch. You're rebranding it from something that I think everybody in this room who knows anything about video game knows that title. Any learnings from that? I mean, we're probably still seeing stuff uncover from the launch campaign to where we are now, but.
Yeah, I think the best change stems from having a strong future-facing vision that helps set you up for success in the long run. And The switch from FIFA to FC was exactly that. It's something that we've been wanting for a long time to deliver a more connected entertainment experience for our players. If you think about the lines being blurred more than ever between gaming and entertainment with popular releases like Super Mario or The Last of Us, there's so many different intersection points with gaming today. So being able to own our IP and broaden out those types of partnerships and extensions that we have from a gaming standpoint was a real driver of that particular change. We've recently gone through a pretty big reorg just to better support the live service nature of our business. 5-10 years ago, we would launch a campaign or launch a franchise, and we would do it again a year from there or every other year. Now we have live service games and products that are changing every day. The experience inside, what we're offering to our players are constantly changing, and so that meant we needed to be more agile as a marketing team to better support that. So similar to what you were describing on the Clorox side, we've been investing heavily in building out our first-party data infrastructure, building out automation so that we're able to deliver personalization at scale, investing in things like clean rooms to make sure we're prepared for when the cookies eventually get deprecated. So all of that has kind of been the driver behind the reorg that we recently went through, the driver behind the rebrand from FIFA to FC. All of it is kind of stemming from that overall vision of delivering connected entertainment experience for our players.
Cool. So I think we have some time. We can expand a little bit. We talked a little bit about the metamorphosis of the media landscape, so we can jump into that before we talk about the AI boom that you are all experiencing. Consumers' attention is shifting. It's constantly shifting. I think every day we're looking at different channels. And how does the media mix channel look from your perspective, and how do you embrace some of that change? Obviously, it's different from B2B as it is to CPG to gaming and entertainment. Where do you kind of see the change happening within your org, and how do you embrace it? And is there room for testing and learning? And give us a little insight from your side, Chelsea.
Yeah, I think, really we've done a lot of testing in this particular area, especially as we've seen the emergence of things like ad blockers, the deprivation of cookies. We're just not able to track in the same way. And from a B2B perspective, needing to track our audiences and that behavior over not just a few days, but over 6 months to 18 months, that becomes very challenging. So investing in a lot of technologies that help us do that and help us better reach our audience over that period of time. And also working internally with our analytics teams to also change the mindset behind tracking one particular individual to actually tracking entire buyer teams and go, okay, this person downloaded this. Now we're seeing that another person is downloading this, but this person is the person actually talking to sales, and understanding that they're probably all connected in some way, and we almost need to all act as data scientists to weave that thread together and put together that story and make sure that we're really developing the right content and messages to serve to them throughout those different channels.
Narasu, in your role, you have the ability to test and learn. So how are media channels, and how do you look at them? And is there an example you can share with us that has worked well, or that you've had to steer away from because it didn't pan out?
I've always been jealous of the B2B people because you have real conversion metrics, and we have to proxy them a lot of the time in CPG, particularly with sales. So I think the thing about media channels from my perspective is that it's not like they're changing drastically over year. We still do everything from television to D2C. Various brands have different mixes of that, but it's what's happening on the channels that's different. And like you were mentioning, how you can measure what happens on the channels that's different. So examples, I'd say one of the newer examples are how we are trying to partner with our retail media partners with new technologies like Clean Room. That will give us the ability to respect privacy laws, but then also understand what people are doing on that channel better. than we have past. Also, we have had the ability to do some really interesting creative testing. So those types of tests, they take a long time to set up and to get results. But then how can we look at our channels as like a continuum? Like how can we use paid social to get an early read? How could you use, for example, CTV to get an earlier read? How could you use D2C even to get a proxy for something you might see in retail? These are the kinds of questions that our team is asking ourselves. What can the role of these channels be in testing?
Got it. Thank you. Colleen, some of the channels that you use are probably vastly different. So, influencers, probably not doing influencers in the B2B space, but it's remaining authentic and true to the brands that you work on and the titles that you work on. How have you been able to see and adapt to some of the changes in the where attention is being and being there and showing up in the right way?
Yeah. I'd say for us, it's not about one channel being more effective than the other, but what's the best mix to reach our broad or niche audience or deliver on what our various objectives are by franchise. Those objectives vary from bringing in new players to brand building to re-engaging lapsed players or deepening the engagement that players have with our game. And each channel has their own unique strength in reaching those audiences and delivering those outcomes. But ultimately, we see the more channels we run on concurrently, the higher likelihood we ultimately have of delivering on that intended outcome. So we do a lot of testing with econometric modeling and more kind of real-time attribution and do our best at balancing the two, but I'm also envious of not having that full picture from a B2B standpoint.
Yeah, I can imagine the challenge of trying to be everywhere and being meaningful. So we heard a full panel on the uses of AI and how it can be applied to marketers and how it could be applied from a efficiency standpoint and automation. How are each of you embracing it? I think it is probably at this point it has to be a must in the conversations you have internally, and then what are some of the ways that you're going to continue to use it, or in the theme of metamorphosis, how is it going to affect change within your roles and your organizations? Chelsea, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, we're in the very early stages, really focusing on kicking off some testing, particularly with our account-based marketing programs. And we think about account-based marketing and really dividing up our audiences and our campaigns into different industries. Obviously, those are going to require very different messages. How can we use AI to better fit those needs? And then also, what are the technologies that are available to help us do that in a more automated and efficient way? So still in the early stages for Logitech, but we're excited about it. It's really cool.
Cool. Narasu, I think you mentioned you're building out some COEs in this. You want to give us a little insight from your perspective?
Yeah, so I'd be remiss in not talking about the Clorox company's COE because they do a lot of the forward-looking work so that 10 other brands don't do repeated things that's not efficient. So we do get a really good information from them. In my role, AI comes into play more through our partners. For example, we did a really interesting AI execution with IBM Watson a couple years ago, where we have a lot of information about cleaning and disinfecting. And through a small chatbot, they were able to have the conversation with the user and serve up the right content, obviously pre-vetted. So that makes me think that we did testing 2 years ago. I guess was it last year or 2 years ago? God, I'm blanking on my years. Omicron year, right? Far away in the past as it can get, the better. Where we weren't sure what people thought across the country, right? Whether they were worried about germs or they were worried about something else around this time of year. And so we did an A/B test very manually across different markets in the US to try to understand whether a family holiday message would perform better than a disinfecting message. And we found that in areas where there was high flu concern or virus concern, the disinfecting message obviously performed better. So fast forward now to this cold and flu season. It doesn't even feel like a cold and flu season right now, but depending on where you are geographically or whether you have kids or whatever the reason, you have a different attitude about it, would not approach that A/B test in the same way. Are going to, in our combination with our personalization efforts, we have partners that have AI that allow us to test far more permutations of creative than we could have ever done 2 years ago. So for me, it's really like, how do I work with the right partners to be able to take advantage of like today's capabilities?
Yeah, we've heard that a lot today. Thank you for sharing. Excuse me. Colleen, are we in a world where NPCs are going to become sentient? What does it look like from your perspective? Obviously, in the marketer's role, it's not that crazy, but maybe it is.
Yeah, AI is definitely permeating every sector of EA at the moment, which is actually making it quite complex on who's the owner of the strategy between our game developing team that are using the technology to accelerate the way that we make our games, to our marketing and our creative teams exploring it. On the media side, we've done a lot of different tests this year to figure out where we want to invest more meaningfully in the future. So everything from running custom algorithms programmatically to testing generative AI capabilities as it relates to getting more content at scale, which is always something that we're striving for and a big gap that we have today. So I see that as solving a big opportunity for us in terms of, we support 10 to 12 franchises or games in a given year. So how do we, expand our production capabilities to deliver more personalized content across all of those franchises is a big opportunity that we see for AI.
That's great. So I think we're past our time to the happiest of hours. So,
Actually, I'd say if there's questions, we can do that.
so any Q&A for our esteemed guests?
Here you go.
Thanks, guys. Happy hour is coming soon, I promise. I just have a question for Colleen in the gaming category, in the world of all these last couple of years, social platforms, streaming platforms like Twitch, YouTube. Like, how do you make decisions from an integrated planning standpoint, like where to put your investments, especially in the last couple of years? It's been, Twitch is no longer just for like the gamers. Everybody's kind of leveraging it, or obviously YouTube.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, even in my 6 years at EA, how much it's changed. The way that people are interacting with our brand and watching our content on platforms like YouTube and Twitch, or creating content to push out to those platforms and using that as a means to connect with one another is a testament to the strength of the community as it relates to gaming. And we are all in on our community and investing in that area heavily, because our own players, playing our game, connecting via our game, creating content via our game, and using that as a watch mechanism, we see as a really strong and viable tool from a marketing standpoint.
Sorry. I just want to ask a follow-up. So does that mean then you're taking digital investments from traditional publications like IGN and putting them into those social platforms, or?
We're always testing. And it's interesting. In our econometric model, we look at concurrent Twitch viewership to see what that metric has on business outcomes like driving new players or re-engaging lapsed players. And there is definitely a correlation that we see that has altered the way that we plan at a really high level.
I've got a 2024 question, just macroeconomics. What are you seeing and how is it impacting media investment? That's for anybody on the media buying side or planning side.
Yeah, so much is changing. Our jobs are not easy. There's more content and ways to consume content across channels than ever. And so finding ways to drive meaningful engagement with our fans and with our players across those touch points is a big part of what my team does. Obviously connected TV and really leaning into live environments, whether that's concurrent viewership on Twitch or the Super Bowl or live sports are really kind of what we're focusing on in the future.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tubi, for hosting us. Brand Innovators for having us. Thank you to the these wonderful guests.